Is it an empty hope to believe that truth will come to light and goodness prevails? It seems all too easy to give up on this in an unjust world, but somehow 9 and 12 manage to keep this dream alive in their hearts, despite having been victims of the worst, hiding in the darkness of this moral world, even though they did not deserve any of it. Keeping this hope they have alive, they manage to perform the miraculous. They don't use their suffering to justify inflicting it on others, continuing the cycle of trauma and having the innocent future generations inherit this curse. Instead, they use their suffering that they endured when they were at their most vulnerable, completely at the mercilessness of the adults around them, to uncover the evil that destroyed their souls. Sure, they do break the law, like Oedipus kills his father and thus overthrows tradition, but they do not succumb to their aggressive instincts, which I'm sure must be fuming with justified anger at the terror they experienced from the neglect and invasive perverted experimentation done to them. They keep their hopes alive, despite being isolated and only having each other. Their law-breaking has an ultimate purpose, and therefore their attacks do not kill anyone, but serve to lay out clues for the police to find. After all, the police says it stands for justice, justice which the boys want to see. But it's not as simple as just telling them what happened. And they're smart enough to know that there is a network of power probably holding all of this a secret, which means that even if it would reach a higher bureaucracy of the police, at some point they would stop further investigation, even in the face of evidence. The only way they could draw enough attention for someone to look into their history is by having a visible and undeniable impact, forcing various groups to look into the situation as they could pose a threat to the major powers involved in all this. In comes Shibazaki Kenjiro, a demoted ex-detective. His career has already raised questions in the world of the police, since he was once part of an investigation to cover a mysterious suicide, thinking that things didn't add up and there must have been some sort of conspiring going on behind the scenes. His curiosity got him too close to the truth, and thus the major powers in this power game lowered his status to someone who could no longer follow his investigative spirit. This would have driven him only more into following his suspicions. But, since he had a daughter waiting for him at home to raise, he took the responsible route to care for the future generations in the ways he made himself responsible, instead of getting caught up in some dangerous territory with powers beyond his comprehension. As time went on, this unsolved mystery never left his mind, and now that he heard that a threatening duo named Sphinx stole plutonium and could risk using it as atomic weaponry, he's drawn into it all yet again. His daughter is at this point in university as well, so he now can't resist to heed this calling. He even has his own reasons for now getting involved, since he grew up in Hiroshima, part of the following generation after it was nuked by the US in World War II. So, hearing that two boys are now in possession of a similar power, he can't allow it to get out of hand, knowing the horrors of that indirectly from his experience growing up living with his grandparents. To him, this whole situation is a riddle like 9 and 12 presented as, because although they are criminals, causing quite extraordinary vandalism in Tokyo, they seem to leave behind traces of clues that allow Shibazaki to investigate the two and their unknown history. With no record of who they could be, he thinks that something doesn't add up yet again, and is questioning their motives and plans they are in pursuit of with the stolen plutonium. One such person who is able to get closer to the ultimate goal of 9 and 12 is Lisa, a girl who is going through a demoralizing struggle herself, wanting to be able to be free and have hope, but shut down by her school and family environment. And once she sees how 12, in response to hearing how she wants to take her freedom to swim with clothes on in the pool because of the summer heat, how he plunges straight away and takes this freedom by the horns to claim it for himself, she feels immediately inspired and seen by this boy with a sunny smile, and even recognizes it in the other one who has an icy stare. They enter her school, catching all kinds of unwanted attention, at least in 9's eyes, and see her running into the bathroom to eat her lunch alone. Her family situation with a dramatic and overly protective mother doesn't help with her school isolation, so as much as it is dangerous, she keeps running into 9 and 12. 12 having a weak spot for her, not being able to help himself to include her more in their mysterious life. 9 sees this as a great danger, since above all in this situation, he does not want to catch anyone's attention. Both of them also know that getting anybody else involved in their life is something that could end up hurting them, even outside their criminal activities. Because the drug-induced experimentation and abusive neglect they experienced left them so unhealthy and their immune system so compromised More than likely, it will lead them to a soon approaching early death, considering basically every child they grew up with had also died under this kind of stress. 12 cannot help himself though. He tries to convince 9 that it would be better to take Lisa in, especially as she has now run away from home and is part of the missing persons list, meaning the police are on the lookout for her. It would allow her to have a place to hide and return to, and after being rescued into a freeing bike ride, escaping from the police, their attachment now has been sealed, feeling connected through their uniting desire to just be together, even if everything ends up coming to an end. Now, a new power is part of the story, or rather an old friend of the two boys. 5. A girl who also grew up with them in the Institute is making her appearance through an arm of the US Secret Service, which she has been adopted into after they had stopped the plans of the institute they grew up in. They didn't end up uncovering the truth to the public though, and now simply make use of 5 and her abilities for their own gain. For her, this power struggle is something she couldn't care less about, because she only has one thing in her heart she wants to do, which is to play with 9 again like they used to. So, she ends up forging a plan, pretending to be Sphinx and meddling with their operation. She tries to catch him, and intervenes with their goal to not kill anyone with their bombs. Risking this gets 9 personally involved to take some of the damage. This makes everything much more difficult, and 9 is more and more overwhelmed with emotions that threaten to tear him apart, as seen repeatedly with his dreams where he recalls 5 not being able to escape with them, and her now engulfed in flame and laughter, reflecting his rising stress on his psyche. But, as much as he plans to intervene with 9's operation, and he feels this makes it all much more difficult for him, they seem to want to play a fair game together. It is like they're trying to reclaim a fair dynamic in their life, having a fairness in their life that they never got, since they had their souls terrorized by the more powerful abusive adults around them. The next decoy is set up at an airport, and now 5 is very directly starting to include her love to play games with 9 to the forefront. They set up a chess match spanning the entire airport, and if he wins, he'd be able to get to the bomb's location. Lisa is now also involved in this plan, and this is immediately now exploited by 5 to get the upper hand. It gets into a real dangerous situation, but luckily, Shibazaki and the Metropolitan Police are now getting involved, against the orders of their superiors. And 9 manages to use this interest in the defense of civilians to his advantage to steer the bomb away and save Lisa. Having now been spotted with her, they are discovered and forced to move from their super cozy rooftop base. And quickly things go wrong. Lisa leaves because she got the two into more trouble, and then is captured and put onto a Ferris wheel with a time bomb. And 12, even if it would ruin his and 9's plan, and even sever their lifelong bond, decides he must save her. 5 is not playing fair this time. She gives 12 an impossible task, to defuse bombs with too short of a timer. 12 tries his best to just continue on, which Lisa realizes is hopeless, and she tells him to get to safety and let her die. But he won't do it. He has grown too fond of her, and won't let this one and only person who he feels understands him outside of 9 alone. 5 makes a last moment deal and forces the desired info out of 12 in order to stop the timer, and he tells her where the atomic bomb is located. 9 is a step ahead, and manages to get it before the US arrives, and shortly after turns himself in. Shibazaki, still on his search for clues about the Sphinx history, comes upon a final and crucial confrontation. After having asked around everywhere, investigating all connections to the institution 12 and 9 grew up in, he finally gets direct info. He now hears what has been going on at the institution for the first time. This allows him to connect the dots, understanding why he was stopped to investigate further way back when he tried to. Something like this, an institution essentially kidnapping children and forcefully shaped them into super soldiers, couldn't have allowed to come to light by Shibazaki's investigation. He now finally has the confrontation with the man who stopped him all these years ago. This old rotten monster, with nothing left to lose because what the hell could an ugly soul like him have left to live for, no matter how much wealth he has. Tells Shibazaki this had been the plan to be able to stand up as a national power against the US and the rest of the world. But one small thing he seems to not have realized is that you cannot establish a strong heart in future generations that would defend its right to freedom by forcefully destroying their hope for it, in the false hope that somehow handing over the trauma he received would strengthen the children. The real strength of an independent soul comes from being able to have it be expressed freely and openly, especially very early on, not have it crushed under the same brutality the old generation endured. As if that somehow would strengthen anything in the long run. But this strength cannot be taught in words to a growing generation, but only healed by the grieving of their trauma. Instead of blindly cursing the next one through some social engineering tricks, manipulating our own psychological nature. Somehow 9 and 12 were able to be strong enough to keep their hope alive, even in a world that does not bring such ancient evil as him to justice by its own accord. Shibazaki now grows confident about this trail of clues laid out by Sphinx having had this purpose. And even now that 9 has gotten himself arrested, making negotiations with the police to make an announcement, he's starting to doubt that the Sphinx will use the bomb to kill civilians. 9's announcement plans are interrupted by the US Secret Service 5 is part of, and 12 also gets involved so that she won't catch him. But 5 will go every length to do so, and she betrays the American after he wants to arrest her from having broken so many laws that could assure their loyalty, and shoots him with a gun out of sight. Now, in pursuit of 9, she knows she has not much longer to live, and nothing left to lose, and she kisses the only one who could reflect her feelings, the awful terror they went through, and ends her life. The plan being interrupted makes 9 start his plan B, a video he could play because things had gone wrong. The threat is now imminent. The atomic bomb was going to explode and there was nothing to stop it. Shibazaki is unshaken by this danger, because he's starting to understand what 9 has been doing. Not even 12 seems to know what will happen. Barely alive from crashing with the motorcycle. Him and Lisa are ready to now truly just witness it all end. Shibazaki calls up his daughter to ask her if a bomb like that could be used for any other purpose. It can be used to shut down the electronics if blown up from high above. He lets her know he won't get into much more trouble after this, and is now certain how the bomb will be used. The bomb is finally located. 9 makes his way to a nice vantage point, and everybody watches as the explosion blasts away the clouds. It also leaves behind some nice electromagnetic lights. And with that, it is now all over. Nine returns to the only place he could call his origin, the place he wants to not forget but remember. 12 and Lisa are also finding their way there, and he wasn't sure at all if 9 would welcome him back. But of course he would, after he even came to help him, and for the first time, they are able to enjoy a true sense of peace and belonging together, where the clarity of this harmony is glimpsed in the fun they have playing around. As the sun sets, Shibazaki is now also there, following his keen curiosity. The boys had just wanted someone to pay attention, who has the power to bring this to light in detail. The horrors of their past, and that's exactly what he has come to understand. Still, they have caused billions, if not trillions in damage, and are now under arrest. But the US now still gets involved, and can't have it come to light how they were responsible for various damages themselves, and as such, the boys are not able to escape this cycle of national power struggles, which had gotten them into this mess in the first place. 9 holds the last thing up his sleeve, a bomb that would destroy a nuclear facility on the ground, which he would press if the US does not withdraw. Civilian protection is not of their concern, so they shoot 12, and this is the final strain on 9's heart he can endure. He throws the detonator to Shibazaki, because it is still not his goal to hurt innocent civilians or repeat his trauma onto others, and with that, is overwhelmed and torn apart. His fragile heart stops. They had both adopted a fraction of their identity, one in his smile and the other in his coldness, in order to have a functional persona with the single bent wing they got. They got caught up in the gigantic wheel of worldly powers, and are a minuscule part in those authorities' cruel and unfair game they could not escape. Somehow, they kept their innocence, not turning into complete monsters through their trauma, and because of that, are remembered as giving hope. Lisa's role in all this might have been small, but her existing as the ones to remember their existence, their horrible childhood, and yes, vandalizing crimes, understanding how they were given the worst odds and yet managed to contain themselves from acting out way worse crimes, and uncovering something that concerns things beyond themselves, so that maybe one day goodness can truly reign, This is what she carries forward in her heart. At last, a bridge between the older and younger generation has been built. One built to last. That doesn't just encourage a cycle of trauma and revenge. This is what we are left with.